any other industry. The reason you don't is because it doesn't make sense.
Perhaps the most notable disadvantage? American companies can't list on major U.S. stock exchanges, forced to trade on smaller markets instead, while their Canadian counterparts are welcomed.
Do you think the U.S. has missed out and we've ceded the advantage to Canada, basically?
I hope not, but it's certainly possible.
Nope. No, I really definitely not. I think the companies are way overvalued at this point. And right now, from this point on, I'm most excited about the U.S. multi-state operators.
Really?
And that issue of federal illegality in the U.S., bulls say it's actually an opportunity for investors to get in on the ground floor.
You actually like that this hasn't happened yet because there's not as many eyeballs yet. If NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange were to start approving trading of the U.S. names, that's massive. Once that spigot turns on, then it's game on.
Now, there are indications that the burdens on American companies could ease up within the next few months on or around the 2020 elections. You're going to hear more from Danny Moses, plus arguments from other bulls and bears in our new CNBC original documentary of Melissa Lee. It is called High Risk, High Reward, Cannabis Inc., and it prepares tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. All right, meantime, we continue to track Hurricane Dorian today after blasting the Bahamas. The storm is now on a course that will bring it dangerously close to communities all the way from Florida to Virginia. Jay Gray joining us now live once again from Savannah, Georgia. Jay.
Hey there, Brian. Yeah, we're right in the middle of that forecast track, and we expect to see conditions here change in the next several hours. Many of these coastal communities are going to get hurricane-force winds. We're going to see storm surge and flooding rains. So while this storm's not making landfall at this point, it's still going to pack quite a punch as it moves up the coastline here. If it does make landfall, the most likely scenario for that, Brian, would be late this week and somewhere along the Outer Banks of North Carolina.
So what's your situation, Jay, as far as the people around you, your crew, the people of Savannah? I mean, is Savannah empty right now? Is it somewhat business as usual? Are you seeing signs of activity, or is everybody left?
No, everything's locked down, especially here along the River Walk, and we have seen a lot of people that have left the area. There are some that are riding things out. There's a curfew in place, and folks are just watching this very closely to see what's going to happen. The opportunity to leave is just about over here, and really that window is going to continue to get smaller and close for communities as this thing continues to move on. So preparations just about over at this point. It's time to either move on or ride this thing out.
Yeah, and I know some people, like you just said, Jay, are planning to ride it out, but let's hope that everybody stays safe, because as we have learned, especially from those terrible images of the Bahamas, this is one of the most powerful storms in modern history.
Overwhelming.
Yeah, Jay Gray in Savannah. Be safe. Thank you very much. All right, coming up, why September could be a rough month for stocks. Even though futures are higher right now by 220, you got to watch out. Later on this morning, don't miss Sam Zell. He's going to be on a program called Squawk Box, which is the next program. Stand by.
Fund my car, from a Mini to a Jaguar.
Feel good car buying from findandfundmycar.com is the place where you can find quality used cars from trusted dealers rated by you, and where you can fund your car with finance to fit your budget. It's feel good car buying all in one place.
Shouldn't be a carry on, choose findandfundmycar.com.
Moving from one rental home to another is so expensive.
Last time, we had to pay hundreds to move in, the first month's rent,
and then a big deposit.
With Romans, it doesn't have to be like this.
It doesn't.
At Romans, you really can move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent.
And that's it.
Nothing more to add. Move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent, with Romans.
No deposit.
No problem.
Romans, your trusted local property experts at romans.co.uk. Conditions and monthly fee apply.
From real estate mogul Sam Zell, his take on tariffs, trade, and the markets. A CNBC exclusive. Squawk Box today, 6 a.m. Eastern.
There's so much uncertainty and concern, volatility, the trade and tariff wars, all this noise that's going on.
What are you doing in the portfolios you manage right now?
The advice we're giving our clients is now just grin and bear it. Don't change your long-term investment strategy because of short-term fears. In fact, what you should be doing is dollar cost averaging into this marketplace.
If I take out a home equity line of credit, does it hurt my credit score?
It doesn't necessarily hurt your credit score, but it does potentially impact your ability to get other debt later.
All right, welcome back. Time now for your executive recap. All the headlines you need in about 60 seconds. Let's go. UK lawmakers, they are closer to blocking a no-deal Brexit with another key vote set for today. Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, says he will push a motion to hold a snap election, but he would still need 2/3 of Parliament to approve a vote. British pound bouncing back today after dropping below $1.20 yesterday. Here in the States, more than 30 U.S. states are now looking at a Google antitrust probe. The investigation is set to be announced today. It is unclear if the group of attorneys general will also investigate other tech giants like Facebook, Amazon, and Apple. Meantime, OxyContin maker Purdue Pharma is reportedly preparing a so-called free-fall bankruptcy as settlement talks over widespread opium litigation have stalled. Reuters says the company's lawyers had documents prepared last Friday for a Chapter 11 filing at a moment's notice. That's what a free fall bankruptcy is. All right, back to the markets and your money. Futures, they're up. Not as much as they were a few minutes ago, but we're still up about 200 points right now. That news out of Hong Kong that extradition bill might indeed be permanently shelved, helping their markets, maybe helping ours as well. But let's talk about this day, this week, this month, this quarter with Gus Fauché. He is a chief economist at PNC. And Gus, I know the day-to-day headlines of Hong Kong and Brexit, they're kind of pushing the markets around a little bit, but these things will eventually move on. And we look at the next couple of years, the fundamental soundness of the American economy. What do you see? Recession or no?
I see slower growth over the next year and a half or so. So I think the tariffs are going to have a negative impact. They're a tax on consumers, and they're going to weigh on consumer spending. And then all the uncertainty we're seeing. Businesses don't know what the picture looks like. They're not sure how to invest. They're not sure whether they should be exporting or not. So I think that's weighing on the economy as well. But I think that consumers remain in fairly good shape. We've got decent job growth. We've got good wage growth. And that should be enough to avoid a recession in the near term.
Yeah, because slower growth does not mean contraction. So you see us kind of muddling along, but not contracting or collapsing.
That's right. So I think we'll see GDP growth a little bit north of 1% over the next couple of years. We will see a slowing in job growth, but that's to be expected given the tight labor market and the difficulty that firms are having in finding workers. But I don't see an outright recession unless we see something more substantive, either on the international front or on the domestic policy front.
Do we need the Federal Reserve to, quote, save us, Gus?
Well, I think the Fed has already taken a step by cutting rates earlier this year. I think we'll see at least a couple more rate cuts. They'll be looking at the data. I think that they are concerned about the uncertainty that's overhanging the U.S. economy right now. And if we do see a more substantive slowing, then we'll see further rate cuts and perhaps a resumption of QE if necessary.
But do we need that? If the economy is not going to go in contraction or recession, why do we need more rate cuts or quantitative easing with $16 trillion in negative yielding debt around the world already, and a 10-year sitting at 1.46%?
I think the reason we need it is because that we would see a more significant slowing if we didn't get that Fed easing. So that forecast that I gave you, that assumes that the Fed does provide some support to the economy in terms of rate cuts. I don't think we're going to need QE, but the Fed has certainly indicated that that's a further option if it's out there. But I do think that we do need rate cuts, over the next few quarters to make sure that we don't fall into recession. It's kind of a precautionary move by the Fed. They're looking at the signals. They are seeing slower growth ahead, and this is intended to offset some of that drag.
Is there any part of the economy that you think is maybe being underplayed from a strength perspective? I mean, we go out there in middle America and we see people still buying homes and cars, and we know that manufacturing is slowing down, but is there something maybe we're not focused enough on, Gus, but we should be?
I generally think that consumers are in pretty solid shape. So we've seen job growth over the past year, about 160,000 per month. Wages are growing at better than 3% annually, so that's about double the pace of inflation. Obviously the tariffs will be a hit to consumers, but I think that the fundamentals there continue to look pretty good. So I would expect that it's really consumer spending that is going to carry the economy through this soft spot that we're expecting to see over the next year and a half or so.
Just quickly here, Gus, I know it's not related directly to this segment. I want to do a little breaking news, but sit tight because I want to get your reaction. We had reports that extradition bill that sparked the Hong Kong protests would be withdrawn. That moved Hong Kong markets overnight, and moments ago, it was made official. There you see video of Carrie Lam. She's the CEO of Hong Kong. Remember, they call it a CEO because it is a special administration region of China. And Carrie Lam announcing to China, to Hong Kongers, that extradition bill has been officially and fully withdrawn. Remember, that was one of, but not only, but one of the key demands of the protesters was to withdraw that bill, which basically would have said this: if you are convicted of a crime or at least accused of a crime in Hong Kong, you could be extradited to mainland China, where laws are different and most would agree are much more harsh. Hong Kongers, that set off the spark of protest here. They demanded that be shelved. It was temporarily shelved. Carrie Lam coming out moments ago and saying that was officially withdrawn. Hong Kong stocks rising 4% overnight. Dow futures up 200 right now. Gus, one more final thing for you, if I could, if you're still there. If we see Hong Kong calm down and Brexit maybe go off the table, as it appears like it will, you think that'll add any measure of confidence to our economy, or are we kind of separate and distinct from that?
No, I do think that a big part of the drag we're seeing in the United States right now is coming from overseas concerns. So obviously the broader relationship with China, but also uncertainty about what's going to happen with Brexit and the European Union. So I think having some of those issues resolved would provide us a small boost to U.S. growth in the near term.
Yeah, small boost. I mean, maybe just take some negative headlines off the front pages or of the papers or the internet, whatever we read these days. Gus Fauché, always a pleasure to get your insight. Thanks for rolling with the breaking news, Gus. We appreciate it and see you soon.
All right, thank you.
All right, Dow futures, they are up 200 points right now. A lot of breaking news. Hong Kong, the UK, the U.S. economy. Squawk Box is going to pick it up all for you. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Squawk Box begins right now.
Good morning. Breaking news out of Hong Kong. The city's government has officially withdrawn the controversial extradition bill that sparked all these protests that have been going on for months. Stocks are soaring. Political crisis in the UK deepening. It's been a while, right? Parliament forcing a vote on a no-deal Brexit. Prime Minister Boris Johnson is threatening to call a snap election. And U.S. stocks pointing to a rebound after yesterday's 285-point drop for the Dow. We'll get you ready for the trading day on this Wednesday, September 4th, 2019. As Squawk Box begins right now.
Live from New York, where business never sleeps, this is Squawk Box.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Squawk Box here on CNBC. We are live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Becky Quick along with Joe Kernan and Andrew Ross Sorkin. Let's take a look at the U.S. equity futures because, as Joe mentioned, that breaking news out of Hong Kong certainly impacting things today. After a down day yesterday for the markets where the Dow was off by more than 200 points, you're seeing a big bounce back this morning. Dow right now, the futures indicated up by almost 200 points. S&P futures indicated up by about 22, and then the NASDAQ indicated up by 88 points. Also, take a look at what's been happening in the Treasury market. You're going to see that yields at this point, it looks like the 10-year is yielding just below 1.5% at 1.498%. 30-year is sitting at 2% exactly. The 2-year's at 1.464%. And then in Europe, you're going to see that equity futures there are also seeing to the upside this morning. Gains across the board of better than 1%. FTSE is the one exception. It's up by about 1/3%, but you can see the DAX up by 1.1% and stocks in Italy up by about 1.5%.
And some breaking news happening literally just moments ago. Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam has now announced the official withdrawal of the extradition bill that sparked months of mass protests there. It is one of 5 demands that protesters have been fighting for, including universal suffrage in the city's elections. Earlier reports of the withdrawal sparked a late-night rally in Hong Kong, with stocks closing higher by nearly 4%. You're looking at that stock chart right there. We're going to get a live report from Hong Kong in just a couple of minutes, but a big sigh of relief of sorts this morning.
And the other big global story is a political crisis brewing in the UK. Willem Marx joins us now to explain the situation to an American audience, it says here, that isn't necessarily familiar with the parliamentary procedure. This is not for me.
Did you hear this stuff? It was hilarious yesterday.
Right. But this is not for me, Willem. This is for certain individuals who may not understand what's going on there. But go slowly, just in case I want to pick up a few of the nuances in it. What's happening?
Okay, so for 2 years, Theresa May's government negotiated with the European Union to try and find a deal so that the UK could leave the EU in March. She did find a deal, but Parliament 3 times rejected that deal, and they extended that Brexit deadline from March through to the end of October. Theresa May eventually resigned, and Boris Johnson, over the course of the summer, took over as Prime Minister. Yesterday, Parliament came back from its summer break, and because he's trying to suspend Parliament next week for 5 weeks, getting closer and closer to that October deadline, Parliament rushed through an emergency debate last night to take control of its own schedule today, the schedule normally controlled by the government. Today, they will introduce legislation that will seek to block the possibility of a no-deal Brexit. Boris Johnson wants to have that possibility because he thinks that will force the European Union to make concessions because of the economic damage that would result from a no-deal Brexit. But now he says he wants an election. The problem is, yesterday, he lost his governing majority in the House of Commons because one of his party members defected to the opposition. He had a majority of 1, now he has a majority of none, so he's in power but not in control. That means he can't hold an election unless opposition lawmakers allow him to, and they're saying this morning, guys, they won't allow that to happen until this fresh legislation to block no deal passes through Parliament successfully.
All right, I got it. Thanks. We'll see what happens. The whole notion is interesting, Willem, that, you know, he's saying he doesn't want a no-deal Brexit. He just wants to be able to negotiate the terms of the no-deal Brexit. So but when you tell people in the EU, well, I'm going to pretend we're going to have a no deal, but I'm really just trying to put pressure on you to give me some things that I want, and they go, I don't know. The whole thing, it seems like a kabuki dance, and I'm not sure what finally happens. But thank you for the explainer, Willem. I was taking notes. And I think I've got it. You got it?
I think so, although every time I think I've gotten this, it's been another surprise in terms of what comes next. I don't think anybody knows for sure.
As I've always said, and I know all of our friends in the UK are going to love this, but we have copies of the Constitution. You know what I mean? I mean, we can Xerox them, although that's an old term.
Willing to send it over?
I don't even think we would charge that much if they would like to see how things should be done and adopt our form of government over there, and we could all be on the same page. Tell me Italy wouldn't do a little bit better. I mean, instead of having 16 leaders in 14 months. Yeah,
pasta's so good.
You're right. You're right. And France, who cares about all that other stuff with those rich, creamy sauces? I mean, it doesn't, right?
Get your priorities straight.
You got to get your priorities straight. The wine, everything else. Anyway, let me know, Willem. I can. I don't know how many pages is the Constitution. I mean, in current. I'll fax it over.
Talking letter or legal size?
Yeah, I'll fax it over to you and just bring it in and give it to Boris.
All right. Speaking of kabuki dance. Trade talks with China have been another big driver for the markets. Let's get to Eamon Javers in Washington. He has the latest on that front. Eamon, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Becky. The president doubling down yesterday on his rhetoric about the trade war after a long weekend over the Labor Day weekend in which we saw escalation by the U.S. side, retaliation by the Chinese side. The president tweeting out this yesterday, saying that we are doing very well in our negotiations with China. He says that he's sure that China would love to wait him out and deal with another administration, but if they do, he said, if he wins, the deal will get much tougher for the Chinese. Meanwhile, he says China's supply chain will crumble and businesses, jobs, and money will be gone. Later in the day yesterday, we got that ISM manufacturing number sinking to 49.1, signaling a contraction in the manufacturing sector may be underway. We saw a response to that from Jay Timmons. He's the head of the National Association of Manufacturers, who said manufacturers have also warned that trade uncertainty would affect our industry. Here's what manufacturers need. Pass the USMCA, the trade deal, turn the trade deal with trade war with China into a trade deal with China, and reauthorize the Export-Import Bank. So the manufacturers there suggesting that there's some global slowing going on, but also saying that they want to turn this trade war with China into a trade deal with China as they watch what's happening in the manufacturing sector. Guys, the political challenge now for the president, based on that ISM number from yesterday, is that the president has said the entire purpose of this trade war is to defend American manufacturing. If that's contracting anyway, the president's got to now explain to voters and to investors around the world why that's happening, even though he's taking the steps that he's taking right now to defend American manufacturing, guys.
I guess it's short-term, long-term, although we don't know what the long-term is going to be.
And the president has said again and again, in the long term, American manufacturing will be better for this. In the short term, he acknowledges there may be some pain for Americans, although he says there's going to be more for the Chinese, but he seems to be willing to tolerate that pain for now.
Yeah, and it's a chicken and egg, a tail and a dog, chicken and egg. I've got a lot of them, Eamon. It's like we can't necessarily be blamed for all the economic weakness in the rest of the globe, or can we? So, you know what I mean? It's like the rest of the economies were pretty slow. They had negative interest rates. But then you layer on all the uncertainty from what we're doing in trade with both Europe and wherever and China. Maybe you can kind of point that back at the U.S. as well. I mean,
Look, a lot of defenders of the administration yesterday said, well, look, this ISM number, the manufacturing, it's really due to just global slowing.
Right.
And then the critics said, well, look, the global slowing is due to the trade war. Right. So, you know, which came first?
I go back to Nixon when all this started, if you really want to know.
Okay.
Nixon, resigns in sort of disgrace. So we brought in Jimmy.
Disgrace.
Yeah, right.
Sort of.
What? In hindsight, seriously, I've seen worse. So Nixon is
maybe we have.
Oh yeah.
He went to China. Nixon went to China. Speaking of China,
he did a lot of good things. A lot of good things. He had a cute dog, Checkers. Okay, so then you go to Jimmy Carter, and then Jimmy Carter's, oh my God, what happened? Then you bring in Reagan, right? And then, let's not go through all this stuff. You weren't around for half of it, I don't think, even though you got that wizened gray hair. But
I'm dying the gray in.
Some people would say that President Obama benefited from some of the mistakes George Bush made. And then how do you explain Trump getting elected? Seriously, Eamon.
It's a really good question, Joe.
You know what? You're out. Every once in a while, I like that. Jammers.
Here's the thing. What the president says about this is that he's dealing with all the legacy of all those presidents you just mentioned, right? They got us into this hole in terms of manufacturing and the industrial base in China, China's ascension, and didn't do anything about it for decades and decades. He says he's the president who finally has to deal with it. He joked, right? He joked. He looked up to heaven and said, I'm the chosen one. I have to deal with this. But he's serious when he talks about that. What he means is generationally, this has fallen in his lap, and it's a problem he has to deal with.
Well, it's amazing that there is still support. I think there's a majority of support for dealing with China right now.
In both parties.
Yeah, which is amazing. Anyway. All right, Jammers.
We'll see you later.
We'll see you later. Okay. I know that. Thanks for the warning. All right, join us now to discuss the impact global volatility is having on the markets. Eric Knudsen, CIO at Neuberger Berman. Eric, let's do this. It's episodic. We have you on from time to time. They're not all distinct appearances. And the last 3-4 times you've been on, have you evolved in your view of what investors should be doing now?
Absolutely. We came into this year with a strong risk-on bias, long equities kind of globally, large, small, U.S., non-U.S., EM, commodities, credit, in reaction to what we thought was the market kind of going too far in the sell-off in the fourth quarter, that we were not expecting recession in 2019. We were expecting soft landing, catalyzed by the Fed moving to much more dovish monetary policy, strong stimulus in China. We've been dialing back that risk exposure as the year has gone on, as markets have rallied, and by the end of June, coming into the third quarter, we really went to neutral at the overall kind of market beta or market exposure level, focusing on areas where we saw good value, but not wanting to take significant directional risk. The S&P was up by that point about 20%, over 17 times forward earnings. We felt valuations fully and probably more than reflected good news that could come out. We wanted to see better earnings. We wanted to see resolution of a lot of the tail risks that were coming up, trade, Brexit, et cetera.
Where does that leave us then?
We're still neutral at that overall market directional level. We think that there's more of the same to come in September in terms of volatility, that we're not going to get a great deal of clarity on corporate earnings, on the path of economic growth. Our base case is still that soft landing. But we need to see more evidence of it, and we need to see the resolution of some of these geopolitical tail risks. We got some good news overnight in China and Hong Kong.
With Hong Kong, it looks like maybe there'll be a peaceful resolution that's reached there. What does that mean in terms of the trade talks between China and the United States?
It takes an external kind of stressor off of the talks. I don't think that the U.S. side wanted to tie in issues around Hong Kong and a perhaps
because we'd have to take a harder line.
Because then we'd have to take a harder line. It reduces some of our freedom of negotiation, and so this opens the door for continued discussion, some opportunity for compromise. At the same time as the president continues to be very aggressive on the trade front, which is why we think there's more volatility to come before we get greater clarity on these topics.
Withdrawing the extradition bill once, is that really what people are in the streets for at this point?
No, they're
I know.
about 100 other things.
I know.
Well, they have
I'm
five.
not sure the genie goes back in.
They've got their five.
But
deep down,
probably
it's
more than five, actually.
Right.
Five.
But deep down,
on
there's
paper. But I think there's a lot.
Deep down, there's this overall
that's the point.
Arab Spring type freedom that apparently there's some people from mainland China joining in Hong Kong that live there, and if that spreads, who knows?
Just from the Chinese perspective, though, I understand from the American perspective, it doesn't put us in a difficult position where we have to take hard lines that we may not want to take.
Indeed.
From the Chinese perspective, though, maybe they are going to be less willing to give on certain fronts because they feel like, okay, we don't have anything that we need to be embarrassed about or where we go from here.
When you go through the five demands, they've addressed one of them is direct democracy. Right. That's unlikely to be realized or satisfied. The business community in Hong Kong is looking for an opportunity to return to normal, and I think the thinking here is that this gives the Chinese government a card to say, look, okay, we're trying to get things back to normal. Protesters go back to school.
Kind of what the business community wants around the globe, in terms of Brexit, in terms of here with trade talks.
Indeed.
The soft landing. Would you say the soft landing that you spoke about, so that's in the bag? Or can we screw that? I mean, how do you know? I mean, there's so many exogenous things that could mean it's not. How confident are you?
We're still confident, but there's still risk to it. Our view is that the U.S. was going to go to trend line growth. That's 2%-ish per year, and that's where we appear to be for the third quarter. That's where we've been first, second quarter of this year, 1.75 to 2.25% U.S. GDP growth. The manufacturing sector, there's some bad news. You saw the PMIs overnight. You just talked about them. At the same time, the consumer is extremely strong. Employment levels where they are, consumer spending, that's 70+% of this economy. As long as the consumer is employed, wages are ticking up, it's hard for the U.S. economy to go into recession. We would suggest that the most important statistics to look at are really the jobs and employment statistics, and we're going to get more information on Friday.
All right. Eric, thank you. Next time you can bring in some milk or something, or some ice cream or Knutson. That's not you?
It's cheese and ice cream from Wisconsin, Minnesota.
Is that
That's my homeland. Yeah, absolutely.
But it's not your
It's not
company.
my family, unfortunately. No dairies in my family.
No dairy. Are you lactose intolerant or something?
No. Just don't happen to own.
You know anyone who's what does that?
My son is lactose intolerant.
Is he really?
Yeah.
It's a pain, right?
Yeah, but we figured it out. We sort of,
What do you do? Soy?
Alternatives?
We do soy, we do almond milk, we do sorbet rather than ice cream. We do a little pizza, but a pizza without cheese, sometimes with cheese. It's a longer conversation.
What can happen finally? Do you grow out of that eventually, or does it?
We're hoping that he's hoping that he grows out of it, but I don't know. A lot of people don't.
And twins, and only
one.
Interesting. And not you.
Not me.
I'm surprised, quite frankly, with all of your other...
I am, with all the other problems.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Eric.
Before we head to a break, I want to tell you that we are watching shares of Google this morning. Take a look right now, because the company is the target of a new U.S. antitrust probe by more than 30 state attorneys general. Now, that investigation will be formally announced next week. This coming according to Reuters. The probe is focused on privacy and antitrust issues. Google has said it is cooperating with that investigation.
Still to come this morning, tracking Dorian. The now Category 2 hurricane is beginning to lash the Florida coast with winds and heavy rain. We'll get you up to speed on the storm next. And later, guest host Sam Zell sounds off on interest rates, the markets, the biggest hot-button issues in business. Right now, as we head to a break, let's take a look at the biggest pre-market winners and losers in the Dow.
This CNBC program.
Moving from one rental home to another is so expensive.
Last time, we had to pay hundreds to move in, the first month's rent.
And then a big deposit.
With Romans, it doesn't have to be like this.
It doesn't.
At Romans, you really can move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent.
And that's it.
Nothing more to add. Move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent, with Romans.
No deposit.
No problem.
Romans, your trusted local property experts at romans.co.uk. Conditions and monthly fee apply.
This meeting of the Losers Club has officially begun.
In 2 days,
I dreamt of you.
it all ends.
I craved you.
In London.
I missed you.
Don't miss the final chapter.
We didn't stop it.
We can't let it happen again.
Don't miss the end of It.
Hello?
It, Chapter 2. In cinemas Friday. Book tickets from your desktop. Rated 15.
At Tesco, we can pop our pasta in your Astra, our red Leicester in your Fiesta, or our mayo in your Mondeo. All you need to do is try Click and Collect. Just go to tesco.com, order your shopping, then click and collect. With the minimum basket spend now only £25. And if you fancy something a little more exotic, we can even put our pad thai in your Qashqai. Try Click and Collect at tesco.com. Every little helps. Selected larger stores. Booking charge may apply. See online for full terms and conditions.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to Squawk Box this morning. We continue to track Hurricane Dorian today after blasting the Bahamas. The storm now on course that could bring it dangerously close to communities from Florida to Virginia. WCAU meteorologist Crystal Clyde joins us now with more. Good morning.
Good morning, Andrew. And what we are looking at is still a powerful storm that's moving now along the East Coast, parallel to that Florida coastline. Take a look at the latest satellite imagery. You can see no longer looking nearly as impressive as it did just yesterday, but still packing a punch. Exactly 90 degrees off the coast of Daytona Beach, 105 for the current wind speeds that are within this storm. And it's now starting to move a bit more than we saw 24 hours ago. Instead of stationary, we're talking about 8 miles per hour to the north-northwest, which will keep it running parallel to the Florida coastline. And look at our radar and you will see that it is racking that East Coast against areas like Daytona and all the way up to Jacksonville, pockets of some of the stronger storm activity on those outer bands. This will continue to ride the East Coast as we go through today, Thursday, and even Friday. So let's talk about the track as we move through the next several days. And you'll see it's looking to make that sharp right turn before making a landfall near Charleston. But the cone of concern does keep areas, Charleston all the way up to the Outer Banks, in its bounds. So it's something to watch as it will be very dangerously close, possibly only 15 or 20 miles outside of those areas. So, speaking of that concern, let's talk about the concerns for the Carolinas, because that is the area there is that closest potential for landfall. We're talking hurricane force winds above 74 miles per hour, storm surge of 4 to 7 feet, and those rain totals of 5 to 10 inches. Isolated areas up to 15 inches are possible, especially right up against those closest coastlines, which will be closest to the eye wall of Hurricane Dorian. That's the latest.
Okay, Crystal, thank you for that. We're going to keep our eyes on this, of course. In the meantime, when we return, a developing story in the debate over gun safety and regulation. There's a number of retailers now taking action to curb sales of both guns and ammunition, with Walmart taking a leading position in that yesterday. We've got details right after the break. And take a quick look at U.S. equity futures at this hour. We are in the green, with the Dow looking like it would open up about 196 points higher, S&P 500 looking to open about 22 points higher, and the NASDAQ looking to open about 85 points higher. We're back in just a moment.
Can you customize the S&P 500 to meet your...
Moving from one rental home to another is so expensive.
Last time, we had to pay hundreds to move in, the first month's rent,
and then a big deposit.
With Romans, it doesn't have to be like this.
It doesn't.
At Romans, you really can move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent.
And that's it.
Nothing more to add. Move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent, with Romans.
No deposit.
No problem.
Romans, your trusted local property experts at romans.co.uk. Conditions and monthly fee apply.
At Tesco, we can pop our pasta in your Astra, our red Leicester in your Fiesta, or our mayo in your Mondeo. All you need to do is try click and collect. Just go to tesco.com, order your shopping, then click and collect. With the minimum basket spend now only £25. And if you fancy something a little more exotic, we can even put our pad thai in your Qashqai. Try click and collect at tesco.com. Every little helps. Selected larger stores. Booking charge may apply. See online for full terms and conditions.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
From the moment I saw you, the last of the litter, I knew you were the one, and we'd soon hear the pitter-patter of tiny paws on our kitchen floor and tiny scratches on the bedroom door. You might sometimes be mischievous, sometimes be shy, but I know I found love in those kitten cat eyes. Join the free VIP Kitten Club from Pets at Home for advice and exclusive offers, including 10% off your first shop in store. Visit petsathome.com/kitten club or join in store. T's and C's apply.
Strength and things. Strength and things. Strength and things. Strings and things. Strings and things and strings, strings, strings and things. Strings, strings, strings and things. Strings, strings, strings and things. Strings and
Now there's a whole range of strings and things called strings and things, including cheese strings, yollies, and new cheese shapes. Find them all in the cheese and yogurt aisle.
strings and things.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. Walmart dramatically stepping back from ammunition sales. Yesterday, I was alerted to this in a surprise email midday yesterday from CEO Doug McMillon, who I had written an open letter to just about a month ago. The largest retailer in America will now discontinue all sales of ammunition for short barrel rifles and handguns. Walmart is eliminating handguns from stores in Alaska, the only remaining state that still carries them in their stores. And the retailer also asking customers to no longer openly carry firearms in stores where open carry is legal. The move coming 5 years into Doug McMillon's tenure as CEO. Until yesterday, he had been reluctant to speak publicly against gun violence, fearing political and customer backlash. Now, of course, he has entered that debate. In a memo to employees on Tuesday, he called the status quo, quote, unacceptable. He said Walmart believes the reauthorization of the assault weapons ban should be debated in Washington to determine its effectiveness. And he also encouraged lawmakers in Washington to strengthen background checks as well as fund research into gun violence, something that the government has effectively been prohibited from doing. This could prove to be a watershed moment, in large part, I would argue, because McMillon's actions could give license to now other business leaders to enter that conversation who've thus far been unwilling or unable. Kroger, the largest U.S. supermarket chain, followed Walmart's move in asking customers to stop openly carrying guns in stores. So a big move yesterday in the business community, and I think you're going to see more of this with the Senate back. I don't know if you guys saw the Washington Post out today with a full page editorial saying, "Do something, Mr. McConnell." So a lot of this is about what what business can do, but the separate element of this is what, of course, lawmakers will do, and the role that business is now going to play in advocating for certain laws. And I think that's actually another sort of dimension of this. But I know we're going to have a larger debate about this in the 7 o'clock hour.
Obviously, McConnell is waiting for Trump, and Trump is trying to figure out what he wants to do in terms of
business,
sending mixed signals.
Is not waiting. I mean, I think
business isn't waiting, but you need to change. You know, the business can bring pressure to change laws eventually, and you've seen how usually you need a grassroots change in public sentiment to elect the people that will enact the laws that you want. And, you know, I harken back to, you know, President Obama had the House and the Senate, and he had the pen ready to go for 2 full years, and nothing happened. Now, a lot has happened since then, obviously. For Walmart, given what happened twice at its stores, this is not a big surprise. Probably he feels responsible to his employees and customers and everybody else, and he's human. He's a good guy. Exactly. But we've already, you know, we know what we want to do, and if we can be on the same side of something, then we can do it. We want the Phil Murphy 10-round maximum magazines, but they don't.
I'll tell you the other things that I think are important about this that are not being talked enough about. So one of the things they probably have the best practices in terms of gun sales in America right now. Walmart, this is in terms of how they do the background checks, what their approach is. By the way, their approach goes far beyond what the law actually what the law is at 21-year-old age. They actually film every single sale on camera so that they have it. They have a computer system that's actually very sophisticated that goes through different state and
so I guess the bad
different
news
laws.
is these gun sales will now be less rigorously.
And what they're going to do, though,
and
what they're going to do.
Their market share of ammunition is 20%. It's expected to drop to 8 to 9%.
And it's going to put a lot of pressure on the gun makers and give them a lot of leverage over the gun makers. But the other issue about this is they're going to provide that service for free to other retailers across the country. So in terms of stepping up this sort of best practices approach, I think that actually could be remarkable. The other thing is he's highlighting the issue of ammunition, which is something that actually doesn't get talked enough about, frankly, in the larger gun debate.
It's all nuanced, Andrew, and I know you don't like to hear it, but and I will concede that if even one round that was purchased at Walmart is used in a mass shooting, that maybe you can help in that regard. But if you were to actually look at the percentage of ammunition that was sold at Walmart that was subsequently used in a mass shooting or used in a crime, you know it would be a number that is, it's a tenth of, and so if you're okay saying, all right, you other 99.9%, your rights, you're not allowed, you can't come in here and buy anymore because the 0.0001%. If you're fine, we have a guy coming on later, Bill Cohn, who says nobody deserves to own these types of guns, and I'm saying you can't own them. So if that's okay with you,
look, no, I think the larger point is the businesses decided, for better or worse.
Right. Well, there are going to be some pushback.
Hold on, and you can push back, but I think
not from me, but from certain people. Some of the guys in the middle of the country are going to be mad.
Business has, and you know what? People were mad at Dick's when they made their decision.
That was a while. I think they made it twice so he could be on the morning shows.
I think that's unfair. That's unfair to Ed Stack, who I think actually has tried to actually play a meaningful role in this discussion. But the only point that I'm trying to make in this is there are. I think you can look at the law as it stands today, and it's very hard. I think for anyone with any semblance of common sense to say it's working. Because if it was working, we wouldn't be having the conversations.
Obviously, the law did not work on the most recent shooting in Texas because the guy was not allowed to own any guns.
The deaths that we've seen, something is not working, and so and lawmakers thus far have been unwilling to take a step. There has been, if you understand the money, how money flows, the NRA has been much better funded, and there's been nobody with real funds on the other side. I'm just suggesting to you that I think business is looking at this in the same way they've looked at immigration and so many other issues, important issues in this country, and are now saying, enough, we're going to try to get involved in this.
Certain businesses. We'll see, but if you want to do it, you need to change the laws. That's what you need to do, and go at grassroots. You could essentially get rid of the Second Amendment down the road if you wanted to. If you could get 2/3 of the states, and if enough people.
That has never been my suggestion.
I'm not saying it is, but that is the way we do things here. We do pass laws.
You know what? There was a time when slavery was legal.
I understand that, and we fought a war.
More common sense decided that
and we fought a war, but we do legislate. We don't. The elitists from Yale. But the elitists from Yale and from Vanity Fair do not decide who wins the culture wars. That's not the way we do it here.
I don't think this is about culture anymore. This is about people's lives. This is not a culture war.
But what about pro-life? That's about people's lives, and I can tell you.
We can have that discussion. That's a completely different discussion.
Well, I'm sure that you have an answer for who's right in that too. I know Jeff Sonnenfeld probably does, and I'm just saying you're not in a position to make the decisions for the rest. What really amazed me about Walmart was that think about where we live here. No longer you're going to be allowed to carry a gun around in a Walmart. I mean, the concept of seeing someone in the Walmart as you're going down the aisles with
it's created panics.
Well, I'm sure it has.
Real problem.
Well, it's just amazing that we even read that. But that just shows you how different certain parts of the country are versus back here, where people are walking through there with the holster. And it's pretty staggering when you read. Okay, I didn't know you could walk around with one anyway in a Walmart. So saying that you no longer can come in here carrying a gun is...
There's a lot of... By the way, this happened at Starbucks. It's happened at McDonald's. This is a big issue across the country.
That's true.
Okay. We're going to continue this conversation in the second.
We certainly are. With the Vanity Fair guy, the Yale academic, and Sorkin. I've got something going on at 7:15. Can I step out?
You can stay. You can.
You don't need me. Do you need me here?
Place over here. We'll get you one.
Do you need me here? I'm not. I'm not a huge gun rights guy. I'm really not. But anyway, coming up, much more on the news that broke overnight in Hong Kong about that controversial extradition bill that sparked months of protest. And we're going to take you live to the city in crisis next. And as we head to break, here's a look at yesterday's S&P 500 winners and losers.
Executive Ed just...
I can find and fund my car, from a Mini to a Jaguar.
Feel good car buying from findandfundmycar.com is the place where you can find quality used cars from trusted dealers rated by you, and where you can fund your car with finance to fit your budget. It's feel good car buying, all in one place.
Shouldn't be a carry on, choose findandfundmycar.com.
At Tesco, we can pop our pasta in your Astra, our red Leicester in your Fiesta, or our mayo in your Mondeo. All you need to do is try click and collect. Just go to tesco.com, order your shopping, then click and collect. With the minimum basket spend now only £25. And if you fancy something a little more exotic, we can even put our pad thai in your Qashqai. Try click and collect at tesco.com. Every little helps. Selected larger stores. Booking charge may apply. See online for full terms and conditions.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
I'm getting strawberry notes and a flutter of sweetness without adding sugar. Clever. It is. Yazoo chooses a lactose-reduced milk that enhances flavour without adding sugar or artificial sweeteners. Milky deliciousness and packed full of goodness. Very clever. Strawberry Yazoo Kids supports change for life. Yazoo, shake it up! Contains naturally occurring sugars. Milk is a source of calcium, which is needed for the maintenance of normal bones.
I didn't choose you. You chose me. When you broke from the crowd and pawed at my knee, soon you'll be feeling right at home. You'll be a bit unsure, but you're free to roam. What's good to chew? What's nice to nibble? Wet food, dry food, tin food, kibble? You might sometimes be cheeky, not always wise, but I know I found love in those puppy dog eyes. Join the free VIP Puppy Club from Pets at Home for advice and exclusive offers, including 10% off your first shop in store. Visit petsathome.com/puppy club or join in store. T's and C's apply.
Welcome back. You're watching Squawk Box, live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square.
Good morning, U.S. equity futures rebounding from some of the losses yesterday. It sounds like, say things like this almost every day. Well, we're down on China trade tension, and the next day we say we're bouncing back on a lessening of China trade tensions. After all is said and done, we're really not very far from all-time highs in any of the averages, but we know how quickly that could change. Let's get to the breaking news overnight that moved stocks in Hong Kong. The government there officially withdrawn the controversial extradition bill that sparked months of protests. NBC's Chris Lissay joins us now with more. Hello, Chris.
Hey, Joe. Yeah, that's right. So just moments ago, the embattled leader of Hong Kong making the formal announcement that she is withdrawing that extremely controversial extradition bill, the same one that sparked these 3 months of protests that have brought thousands, tens of thousands, even close to over 1 million people, according to some estimates, throughout these last 3 months. Because people here have been terrified that with this extradition bill were to go forward, that would give China a license to pluck suspected criminals from Hong Kong and bring them back to the mainland for questioning. And as you know, the judicial system in the mainland China is much more opaque than it is here in Hong Kong. However, it's unclear if removing this bill from circulation will be enough to satisfy the demands of protesters. This isn't the only grievance that they have. They've also wanted Carrie Lam to resign. They've wanted the more than 1,000 protesters who have been arrested throughout this movement to be given an amnesty. So it's very uncertain what this is going to mean for the rest of this movement. Joe?
Yes, we'll see. To be continued, Chris, and we'll check back with you from time to time. We appreciate your reporting. Thank you, Chris Lissay.
Okay, coming up, when we return, LinkedIn announcing its top U.S. startups of 2019. We're going to reveal that list of the best new companies next. And tomorrow, you don't want to miss this, Slack CEO Stuart Butterfield. He's going to join us to dig through the company's first quarterly report since going public. Stay tuned. You're watching Squawk Box on CNBC.
Delivering Alpha, the most important investor summit 9 years running. Strategy from leading alpha generators. Direct access to policymakers and government leaders. On September 19th, see who's calling the shots now. Go to deliveringalpha.com to attend this year's blockbuster event.
You will come away with ideas that you can put to work immediately.
Plus, special guest Vice President Mike Pence talks economy and trade war impact. Reserve your spot now at deliveringalpha.com.
I'm off to college. I'm worried about my parents' retirement.
At Tesco, we can pop our pasta in your Astra, our red Leicester in your Fiesta, or our mayo in your Mondeo. All you need to do is try click and collect. Just go to tesco.com, order your shopping, then click and collect. With the minimum basket spend now only £25. And if you fancy something a little more exotic, we can even put our pad thai in your Qashqai. Try click and collect at tesco.com. Every little helps. Selected larger stores. Booking charge may apply. See online for full terms and conditions.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
At the Bank of Antandek, they're looking for a mascot.
We need an icon. Something that says high flying to all our mortgage customers.
Like a falcon or a stallion.
Or even better, a parrot. Check it out.
Meanwhile, at Santander, they're concentrating on helping customers find ways to take years off their mortgage with their overpayment calculator. See what's possible at Santander.
All applications are subject to status and our lending criteria. Your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage.
Strength and things. Strength and things. Strength and things. Strings and things. Strings and things and strings, strings, strings and things. Strings, strings, strings and things. Strings, strings, strings and things. Strings and
Now there's a whole range of strings and things called strings and things, including cheese strings, yollies, and new cheese shapes. Find them all in the cheese and yogurt aisle.
strings and things.
I didn't choose you, you chose me. When you broke from the crowd and pawed at my knee, soon you'll be feeling right at home. You'll be a bit unsure, but you're free to roam. What's good to chew? What's nice to nibble? Wet food, dry food, tin food, kibble? You might sometimes be cheeky, not always wise, but I know I found love in those puppy dog eyes. Join the free VIP Puppy Club from Pets at Home for advice and exclusive offers, including 10% off your first shop in store. Visit petsathome.com/puppy club or join in store. T's and C's apply.
We have some breaking news just out on WeWork ahead of its public offering. The company now adding Harvard Business School professor Francis Frey to its board of directors. CNBC has reported in mid-August that the company had an all-male board at a time when every single S&P company, every S&P 500 company, had at least one female director. Frey briefly served as senior vice president at Uber. Reports say WeWork is planning to kick off its IPO roadshow as soon as next week. The other piece, by the way, in this amended S1 that I know you'll be interested in particular is, I don't know if you recall, this is the audience now, we had reported in the S1 that Adam Neumann, the company's CEO, had sold the rights to the trademark we to the company because he had owned the rights for $5.9 million. There was, as you might imagine, outrage about that. And he apparently now has gone back and said, actually, you don't have to pay me for that.
It raises all these questions about corporate governance. He's giving it back. The damage is done by what they've already kind of set off with these issues. There's a lot more. We'll discuss it a little later.
We'll discuss a lot more. Separately, we should tell you that LinkedIn is out this morning with its list of the top U.S. startups of 2019. With us now to reveal the big names on the topic is Jesse Hempel, Senior Editor at Large at LinkedIn. Good morning.
Good morning.
So let's talk about some of these names. I have to admit, I don't know all of these companies. Some of these are these guys are like, we're on the edge of the edge now here.
Right. Well, and that's the point, Andrew, right? Because so we've been doing this list for 3 years, and this list, what it measures is where people want to work on LinkedIn right now. And so these are the companies that are growing that maybe you haven't heard of that probably 3 years from now you will.
Okay, so let's go. Snowflake. A lot of people get called Snowflake, and that's like a derisive term.
I'm just saying that
on Twitter, on social media, I've been called a snowflake.
Do not look over at me.
I'm just saying.
Listen, if you were working at Snowflake, you would not find it a derisive term because this is an enterprise software company that's
This is one of your favorite. This is your cocktail conversation company. It's a cloud company.
Oh yeah.
He talks about the cloud at cocktail parties.
Unfortunately, it's like a 10-second conversation because if they need any details or color, I kind of get stuck. But
you just say growing.
Right.
Just the cloud is just very.
Okay, so number 2 on the list is Juicist? Dosis.
Surprised you don't know this one. This is a cannabis company.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, Andrew. How come you don't know that one? I'm surprised.
You're surprised?
I think it's very interesting. This is the first year.
My off hours, right?
First year in the U.S. that we've had a cannabis company on the list of top startups. It tells us a lot about what I assume will be a fast-growing industry.
How do you measure it and rank it? How
do we rank it? Well, okay, so we're looking basically at the interactions that people on LinkedIn are taking, and we're figuring out where they most want to work. So what is that? That is, first of all, headcount. Like, who is applying to these companies' jobs? How many applications they get for each job? We're looking at how people are connecting to people on the site. We're looking at how many people are visiting these companies' pages. So the reason why I like this list, Becky, is because it really is a reflection of what people are doing. This is not a bunch of editors sitting in a room wondering, like, is this company kind of cooler than that? This is actually what job seekers are telling us they're doing. So that's why I like it.
Is there one that surprised you on this list?
I mean, when you get past Dosis.
Yeah. Can you get past Dosis? People like Peloton.
People like Peloton.
And that's going public. I obviously think there would be more companies
people like stuff they do, right?
Well, heck, exactly. Okay, so surprising. Have you guys heard of Brex? Have you been talking about Brex?
We have not been talking about Brex.
Okay, so Brex is...
But we will now.
It is basically, it's trying to be the next American Express. And yes, that is big language, but that's what startups do, big language. It is run by a couple of 23-year-olds from Brazil, and this is their second big startup. And this company has raised more than $300 million in capital, and it's 2 years old. And it surprises me for its ambition and for the interest in it.
We saw Compass, and we've had the CEO of Compass, the founder, on a handful of times, including when he first started the company, and we didn't know what would happen to it, and now it's obviously grown to this crazy size.
Right.
Are most of those people, you think, looking for real estate jobs, meaning to be real estate brokers?
I mean, it's a lot of brokers. With Compass, it's a ton of brokers, but not entirely. I mean, so this list looks at full-time positions. So if the company calls it a full-time position, we're interested in it.
Right.
So
others on the list, Robinhood. Not Robinhood the charity.
Not Robinhood the charity.
But Robinhood the finance company.
The finance company. And so that is another, sweet story, maybe, in Silicon Valley. It's a company that people are very excited about. It's hiring fast.
How much of this, though, is about trying to get in early before an IPO? Because I would have thought there might be some more companies that... Maybe they're trying to get in so early. This is early.
This is early, right? Yeah. So if you look at, say, the 2017 top startups list, of the top 5, maybe 3 have gone public this past year. So
what happened to the other 2? Are they still around?
The other 2 are WeWork and Airbnb. I think it's possible, right?
So maybe this is a good investment list. You're a venture
I wonder, if you can look at it 2 years later.
You can look at this list for a lot of different purposes. First of all, if you compete with any of these companies, it's possible you will lose talent. Second of all, if you are doing any of these things these companies are doing, you may want to position yourself the way they're positioning themselves to the talent market. And you should certainly be looking at them for that reason.
Okay. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Yes, thank you.
You bet.
When we come back, markets on the move this morning. Our next guest is going to tell us what the technicals are telling him during the recent volatility and why he says it's a good time to buy Apple. Right now, as we head to a break, a quick check of what's been happening in the European markets right now. Up across the board, but off the highs that we had seen a little earlier this morning. Still, both the CAC and the DAX up by about 1%. We'll be right back.
Can you customize the S&P 500 to meet your client's income objective?
At Tesco, we can pop our pasta in your Astra, our red Leicester in your Fiesta, or our mayo in your Mondeo. All you need to do is try click and collect. Just go to tesco.com, order your shopping, then click and collect. With the minimum basket spend now only £25. And if you fancy something a little more exotic, we can even put our pad thai in your Qashqai. Try click and collect at tesco.com. Every little helps. Selected larger stores. Booking charge may apply. See online for full terms and conditions.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
Casa Bacardi is back, bringing a party with an unmissable lineup and tasty rum cocktails to London. With Bacardi's new Sound of Rum crew, featuring live sets from One Asen and P Money, MCing from Harry Pinero, and loads more. The perfect recipe for an epic night out. Casa Bacardi at Box Park Croydon on September 14th. For more info and to get your tickets now, head to boxpark.co.uk. Do what moves you. Over 18s only. Drink aware for the facts.
Strings and things. Strings and things. Strings and things. Strings and things. Strings and things and strings, strings, strings and things. Strings, strings, strings and things. Strings, strings, strings and things. Strings and
Now there's a whole range of strings and things called strings and things, including cheese strings, yollies, and new cheese shapes. Find them all in the cheese and yogurt aisle.
Strings and things. Smouldering, slinky, seductive, streamlined, spellbinding. Ever notice how some of the most alluring descriptions seem to begin with the letter S? So perhaps it's no coincidence that S-Line, Audi's most stylish trim, does too. Take the A3 Sportback S-Line. With its added standout, there's another one, details, it's pure Audi. Just even more sporty, stealthy, sleek, striking, swish, sublime, sultry, swoony. The supremely stylish Audi A3 Sportback S-Line. Test drive yours at West London Audi or search Audi S-Line. Audi, Vorsprung durch Technik.
Welcome back to Squawk Box, everybody. We've been watching the U.S. equity futures this morning, and we're getting back to a lot of ground that we had lost yesterday. This morning, it looks like the market would open up by almost 200 points after the market was down by about 238 points yesterday. NASDAQ up by 80 points, and the S&P futures are indicated up by about 21. Joining us right now to talk about some hidden gems amid nervous market sentiment is Chris Verone. He's head of technical analysis at Strategas. And Chris, I can't even believe I'm calling these hidden gems when your first pick is Apple. That's one of the last stocks I would put as a hidden gem, so explain yourself.
Well, you think of it that way, but then you look at the analyst ratings. Apple has the fewest number of buys from the sell side today at any point over the last 10 years. So the street has abandoned it as a long. We like it here. The bear market in Apple already happened. It was last year. The stock was down 35 from the highs. I've been impressed with how resilient it's been here, despite being in the center of the storm. The stock actually acts pretty well. I think the next move here is up, not down.
How much of this is going to be tied to what happens with the China trade talks?
Well, what I'm curious here is, to what extent are all these well-known risks well-known, right? Whether it's China, whether it's Brexit, whether it's PMIs under 50, these have been talked about and articulated for the better part of the last year, yet here we are still in the same trading range.
So do you think all of that's been baked in, even as potential worst-case scenarios?
I think when you look
this is still a stock that moves on headlines about trade talks on a daily basis.
I think when you look at positioning broadly, I mean, you had $19 billion of outflows from equity ETFs in August. Put-call ratios have been spiking significantly for the last month. So I think you have to ask the question, what is already discounted at these levels? And even yesterday, on a bad headline, the market actually acted pretty well. Declining stocks only beat advancing stocks about 2-1. It was very modest under the surface. So I just have to wonder what is already known here. And the way the market behaves, I think the mistake is getting too bearish.
A slightly different story for UPS, which is your second pick. UPS has had some pressure on it over about 3 years now.
Yeah, the stock peaked about 2 years ago. It's down 40% from the highs. I think it's a curious time for an economic cyclical or a bellwether like UPS to be turning up, but that's exactly what it's doing. Bottomed a couple months ago. It's off the lows. 50-day has now crossed above the 200. So we're starting to see the technical signs. Even on bad news, the stock has gone up. So we're starting to see the technical signs that perhaps the sellers have moved on from this one. And it's a very curious name just given where people presume we are in the cycle. So maybe it's an argument that, hey, something actually is getting better here, or all that bad news on the economy is already priced in.
Your third pick is Sonos. Why?
Yeah, it's one of those names that has been lost with all the attention on the Ubers and the Lyfts, the Pinterests. Sonos is actually one of the better acting names among the IPO space over the last several months. They cut the stock in half from 20 to 10 over the last year, quietly bouncing around the bottom over the last couple of weeks in a tough market, actually acting better. I think it's one to take a shot on in this kind of neglected IPO space.
Another, quality of life advance that is underestimated. Outdoor speakers, Apple Music, piped through Sonos, in the house, anything that's ever been.
He knows.
No, anything that's ever been that I've ever wanted to listen to, that I can play at the. But what is that worth? You add that to Google Maps and what is that worth? Amazon.
You're offering to pay more?
No, I'm just saying our lives are. You worry about the death of the American dream and everything. Our lives are better. We live better than the Carnegies, Andrew.
Because of Sonos.
Statistically right.
Yeah, because of Sonos. Meanwhile, everything I'm listening to is like 50 years old. I have some issues. Yeah. Led Zeppelin 1. I cannot believe that the drummer.
I can't believe you're back to that.
I cannot
thought you
believe
shook off of that.
I did, but I listened to it yesterday, and I guess I never appreciated Jimmy Page and the drummer.
Because you didn't have it on the right speakers.
Yeah, it was actually it was on my Walkman, which is another unbelievable advance.
Chris, thank you.
My pleasure.
Great
Thanks
to see
for
you.
being here.
Oh, it's me. Coming up, real estate legend Sam Zell joins us next. He'll be our guest host for the next 2 hours. He'll share his thoughts on interest rates, WeWork, and a lot more. We're coming back.
At Romans, you can rent your next home from just £36, plus your first month's rent. No deposit.
No problem.
Romans, your trusted local property experts at romans.co.uk. Conditions and monthly fee apply.
At Tesco, we can pop our pasta in your Astra, our red Leicester in your Fiesta, or our mayo in your Mondeo. All you need to do is try click and collect. Just go to tesco.com, order your shopping, then click and collect. With the minimum basket spend now only £25. And if you fancy something a little more exotic, we can even put our pad thai in your Qashqai. Try click and collect at tesco.com. Every little helps. Selected larger stores. Booking charge may apply. See online for full terms and conditions.
Oh, I found one of our new Vauxhall Griffin editions.
Yes. What comes as standard?
Standard? Well, alloy wheels, sat-nav, aircon, DAB radio, Bluetooth, smartphone projection and USB connection.
Wow. Is that everything?
Sorry, forgot the colour touchscreen.
Buy a new Griffin edition, Adam, Astra, Corsa or Mocha X Plus and get a whole host of features as standard. The Griffin edition range. All Griffin, no bull. Visit your nearest retailer now. Vauxhall, British brand since 1903. Participating retailers only. Limited units while stocks last.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
News out of Hong Kong this morning. Chief Executive Carrie Lam withdrawing the controversial extradition bill after months of protests. The latest from Asia and market reaction is straight ahead.
From China to market conditions to real estate, guest host and billionaire investor Sam Zell is here. His reaction to the news out of Hong Kong and much more is coming up.
And Walmart announcing a major change to its gun and ammunition sales. Other retailers considering the same. We're going to discuss the move as the second hour of Squawk Box begins right now.
Live from the beating heart of business, New York, this is Squawk Box.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Squawk Box here on CNBC. I'm Becky Quick, along with Joe Kernan and Andrew Ross Sorkin. In studio with us this morning is Sam Zell. He's the chairman of Equity Group Investments. And Sam, it's great to have you here today.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us.
My
Watching
pleasure.
the markets very closely, I take it?
Reasonably.
Reasonably. We're watching it too. We're going to show you very quickly the U.S. equity futures at this hour. Yesterday, big down day for the markets with the Dow off by just over 230 points. This morning, though, you see things swinging back, and a lot of that is because of breaking news that we're seeing out of China. It is official. Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam says the controversial extradition bill has been fully withdrawn. Sam, obviously you're watching so many things around the globe, so many things that impact your holdings. How did Hong Kong play into anything that you've kind of seen on this issue?
Well, I think that Hong Kong represents a problem. I mean, I think, China can't ignore it. China's kind of, reached over and taken a very strong position with reference to Hong Kong. I think they're finding out that may not be the best methodology. I think there's a big risk here that this thing could get out of hand.
Obviously, this comes as a big surprise to be watching this today, and probably great news for the protesters there in the streets. I wonder, though, what kind of impact this potentially has on the China trade talks here in the United States, because that probably put us in a tougher position where we would have to take a hard line no matter what happened. If China pulls back, what does that mean potentially?
I don't know. I mean, I would find it hard to believe that the Chinese would invade Hong Kong and put soldiers on the ground. I think that would be, worse than Tiananmen Square. So we'll see what happens. But I think they have to find some medium methodology to both give the people in Hong Kong the freedom that they were promised, and then still preserve the Chinese control.
Well, apparently, they remember the last week's troop rotation.
Right.
So the troop rotation, and people are, I was watching this last night, but people are waiting. A rotation means that the troops that were there already that are getting replaced are supposed to leave. And as of this point, nobody's left.
Yes.
So that's sending in more. That's not rotating.
But keeping everybody there was
when you put troops across the border, I think that's called intimidation.
Right. What do you make of recession fears, Sam? You're probably hoping for one as the grave dancer.
Yeah.
I know. I don't mean that you're hoping, but there are opportunities that are created by people like you. But do you think do you have a percentage? Is it 30%, 40%, 60%, 10%?
I think that I have been looking for a recession for some time. And every time I get a signal that it's likely, I get a reversal. which I've never had that experience.
What kind of signals does a guy like you look for?
Well, I mean, we have a company called Annixter. Annixter is an $8 billion worldwide distributor of wire and cable.
Yeah.
I've owned the company for 30 years. It's always been a sign when customers start delaying orders that we're about to head into a recession. 6 months ago, they started delaying orders. And I said, well, here we go.
Right.
And then 3 months ago, they reversed.
Back up again.
Yep. And so I think that...
So it wasn't the yield curve. It was... How many brothers were there at Annixter? Do you know? Or there were only two? Annixter brothers?
Actually, 1, 2... I think just 2.
There were 2 Annixter brothers. Yeah. So that's who
I bought the company from.
You did, right.
Yep.
They must be loaded. Anyway, so what else? Other interesting recession signals that you can share with us?
You know, I mean, prior to the Great Recession was the first time since World War II that we went into a recession when real estate was not in oversupply. We are now in another situation where real estate is not in oversupply.
Now it's not, even with rates where they are.
And if real estate is not in oversupply, can you have a recession?
So where are you now? Then we're not having a recession.
I don't think so. And I think we're going to get through the election, despite, the headlines, without dealing with a recession.
Why do you, how would you explain some of these reversals in the signals you've seen? What happened?
Well, I think that we spent 8 years focusing on redistribution and not focusing on growth. I think that produced an historically low growth rate, which our country, frankly, is not accustomed to and equipped to deal with. I think that the change in administration, the change from redistribution to growth has had a pretty positive impact, much more so than anybody would like to admit. And so I think that the overall economy is in better shape than conventional wisdom.
You're a lifelong Democrat too, Sam. Although lately
I've been accused of a lot of things. Never a lifelong Democrat.
You were a Democrat,
but I was. I mean, I grew up as a Roosevelt Democrat.
And you're not a hardcore. You're not a big I don't think of you as a hardcore. I think you're a free market guy at this point.
Absolutely.
Do you recognize if you were a Democrat at one point, do you recognize where the Democratic Party is right now? And what would that do in 2020 to your recession outlook if Bernie or Liz
I've said over and over again that, Santayana said it all when he said he who fails to learn from history is condemned to repeat it.
Yeah.
To me, this is 68, 72 all over again. 68, Humphrey was supposed to win. Right. Everybody was stunned that Nixon won.
Right. The second time we brought up Tricky Dicky today.
Yeah. And then in 72, the Democrats went to McGovern that was completely unconnected to where the rest of the country was.
And he was right of where McCarthy was. Which is amazing.
And they lost in a landslide.
So, he won like 2 states, Andrew.
It looks to me like the Democratic Party is going way left. And I think if they go that far left, I think we're going to see President Trump elected.
The latest poll has Biden up 12, one of the polls. It's early. Yeah. Do you think Biden could beat Trump?
Well, I think Biden is a very strong potential candidate for the Democrats. But I think that the whole Democratic Party has gone so far to the left that I don't think that Biden either can win it, or if he does, he will have been pushed so far over that I think he will be the 2020 version of McGovern.
Are you supporting the president for re-election?
I'm certainly supporting the Senate. And I've been very active in supporting people running for the Senate.
But not the president?
I've not been a supporter of the president.
You've worked in his industry?
I do. I've had
You've had dealings with him?
I've had dealings with him. I know him.
And you don't feel comfortable supporting him?
No, I didn't say that. You did.
And we've had this. You have deja vu because you've had to answer these questions before. Because he knows that you're on record. He knows you're on record saying you've had bad business dealings with Trump, and he's trying to get you to say that now. So will you please say that? Oh, you do. I don't need to explain that to you. Okay. All right. I've seen. I mean, I thought I was on.
I know each other very well.
I thought I DVR'd this from your last. Okay.
I just wanted to understand what.
All right. You just want to understand. I got it.
How is things evolved?
I have supported no one for president.
Okay.
No one. I likely am going to support somebody, and at least at the moment, if I were to bet, I would end up supporting the president because I think the Democrats are giving me no alternatives, just like they did the 16.
Okay, excellent. We may replay the crock of Shih Tzu comment that you made last time, which is legendary. Legendary.
I don't say that again.
You didn't say the dog. You actually, you didn't. I said the dog.
The most amazing thing about that comment was that no one complained.
No.
I mean, I couldn't. I said, "Oh my God!"
Because what you were describing was so absolutely a crock of Shih Tzu that no one's going to argue with you.
You were sitting there and you couldn't. You were dying. I was dying. This guy kept talking and talking and talking and saying nothing.
Sam, you called it like you saw it, and nobody disagreed with you. That was
So, I mean, if something today gets to that point, are you ready to pull it out again, or you're it's out of your arsenal?
Nobody's ever accused me of being too subtle.
No, you're right. Sam is with us. I get mail from people that work here that say it's always the best. People love when you're on, Sam.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sam's with us.
He's with us.
He's not going anywhere.
I know that.
With him.
I know he's going to be here for 2 hours. I'm gonna. I don't know if I get to talk to him again, but I'm going to porn my way in there.
I bet you will.
Yeah.
When we come back, a developing story in the ongoing debate over gun safety and regulation. A number of retailers now taking action to curb sales of both guns and ammunition, including Walmart. We'll talk about that decision in just a bit. In the meantime, check out the futures. As we mentioned, they are looking up pretty sharply this morning. Dow futures up by almost 200 points. S&P futures up by 22. The NASDAQ up by 78. Following stocks higher in China, or in Hong Kong. Hong Kong stocks up by almost 4% this morning after the moves we've seen there. We'll be right back.
I can find and fund my car, from a Mini to a Jaguar.
Feel good car buying from findandfundmycar.com is the place where you can find quality used cars from trusted dealers rated by you, and where you can fund your car with finance to fit your budget. It's feel good car buying, all in one place.
Shouldn't be a carry on, choose findandfundmycar.com.
This meeting of the Losers Club has officially begun.
In 2 days,
I dreamt of you.
it all ends.
I craved you.
In London.
I missed you.
Don't miss the final chapter.
We didn't stop it. We can't let it happen again.
Don't miss the end of It.
Hello?
It, Chapter 2. In cinemas Friday. Book tickets from your desktop. Rated 15.
At Tesco, we can pop our pasta in your Astra, our red Leicester in your Fiesta, or our mayo in your Mondeo. All you need to do is try click and collect. Just go to tesco.com, order your shopping, then click and collect. With the minimum basket spend now only £25. And if you fancy something a little more exotic, we can even put our pad thai in your Qashqai. Try click and collect at tesco.com. Every little helps. Selected larger stores. Booking charge may apply. See online for full terms and conditions.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
Breaking news just hitting the wires on mortgage rates. Diana Olick joins us now with more. Did you know this was happening, Diana? I guess you did, huh?
Every Wednesday, you can set your watch to it. Look, after holding steady 2 weeks ago, mortgage interest rates resumed their retreat last week, but that did not boost mortgage demand. Total mortgage application volume decreased 3.1% for the week, according to the Mortgage Bankers Association's seasonally adjusted index. Volume was 62% higher compared with the same week 1 year ago, when interest rates were substantially higher and refinance activity was extremely low. Now, the average rate on the 30-year fixed with conforming loan balances decreased to 3.87% from 3.94%. That's for loans with 20% down payment. That rate was 93 basis points higher this same week 1 year ago. Now, surprisingly, refis, which have been very strong, fell for the second straight week, down 7%. They were still 152% higher than a year ago, but the annual comparison has been shrinking for several weeks now, despite these substantially lower rates. Now, mortgage applications to purchase a home bumped up 4% for the week and 5% annually. But the home buying market today is less about lower interest rates and more about high prices and a severe shortage of homes for sale. Back to you guys.
Okay. Thank you for that report. A couple big headlines to bring you at this hour. Shares of truck maker Navistar, they are jumping this morning. Navistar's earnings and sales beating both estimates and market share increasing. Separately, the Fed is now out with its latest beige book. That comes later today. The region-by-region assessment of the U.S. economy comes out at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And Tapestry has now appointed its chairman, Jive Zetlin, as a new CEO. He succeeds Victor Lewis, who's leaving the coach and Kate Spade parent after 13 years on the job.
Coming up, Walmart is going to stop selling ammunition for handguns and some assault rifles in its U.S. stores. We will discuss the move after the break. Then later, an update on the track of Hurricane Dorian. After leaving the Bahamas in ruins, the details are straight ahead. Squawk Box will be right back.
At Synchrony,
moving from one rental home to another is so expensive.
Last time, we had to pay hundreds to move in, the first month's rent,
and then a big deposit.
With Romans, it doesn't have to be like this.
It doesn't.
At Romans, you really can move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent.
And that's it.
Nothing more to add. Move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent, with Romans.
No deposit.
No problem.
Romans, your trusted local property experts at romans.co.uk. Conditions and monthly fee apply.
At Tesco, we can pop our pasta in your Astra, our red Leicester in your Fiesta, or our mayo in your Mondeo. All you need to do is try click and collect. Just go to tesco.com, order your shopping, then click and collect. With the minimum basket spend now only £25. And if you fancy something a little more exotic, we can even put our pad thai in your Qashqai. Try click and collect at tesco.com. Every little helps. Selected larger stores. Booking charge may apply. See online for full terms and conditions.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
Make sure you're uni-ready with our huge range of practical essentials and home-from-home comforts and get 10% off for a limited time. T's and C's and exclusions apply. Dunelm, the home of homes.
Welcome back to Squawk Box this morning. Walmart CEO Doug McMillon making a very big announcement yesterday. The company's stores will no longer sell short barrel rifle ammunition that can be used for military-style guns. Walmart also eliminating handguns from stores in Alaska. It's the only remaining state where they still carry them. As of the company's second quarter report in August, Walmart held a 2% market share of firearms and a 20% market share of ammunition in the United States. In a statement, Walmart expressed confidence that these actions would cut down its market share of ammunition from 20% down to 6 to 9%. Joining us right now to discuss Doug McMillon's strategy behind his decision, two CNBC contributors this morning, Jeff Sonnenfeld, Senior Associate Dean for Leadership Studies at the Yale School of Management, and William Cohan, Vanity Fair Special Correspondent. Good morning to both of you. Jeffrey, I'll start with you in terms of how you think that this changes the dynamic in the debate in terms of the role that Walmart's playing and whether you think other CEOs are going to be stepping out now as well.
This is a giant watershed moment, and good for you, Andrew, in your open letter to Doug McMillon of Walmart and others as a call to action, like the Davos in the desert statement you had several months ago. I think almost a year ago, we've seen a big reaction, and in this case, this is a watershed moment. In the last hour, I heard Joe talk about how Nixon was hounded out by a hostile press, President Nixon, and this is akin to the summer of '74. When Johnny Carson, representing mainstream America, said it was time for Nixon to step down. And he was very non-political. Doug McMillon, he's not. Joe was referring to these elitists from Vanity Fair and Yale. I guess he must be referring to Stephen Roach or Bob Schiller.
Don't sell yourself short, Jeff.
This is mainstream America. You know, Doug McMillon is a 52-year-old who spent 35 years inside Walmart and a University of Arkansas graduate. We're looking at similar moves at Kroger's with their Fred Meyer stores, where they've done the same thing, Ed Stack. These are not elitists by any stretch of the imagination. And we've seen a huge reaction across the face of other retailers who've already been moving in these directions, from Chili's to Chipotle to Walgreens to obviously to Walmart. We've seen guns are being banned from stores, AMC theaters to Regal theaters. Is that this is there are more people in the country who believe that we need to have uniform background checks than believe we landed on the moon.
Bill, let me ask you, though, in terms of what kind of pushback you think will exist, and also how far you think this takes the debate, and whether it really does change it.
Well, Andrew, first of all, again, congrats to you for your outspokenness on this subject. It's much needed, and thank you for using your platform for doing it, among other people. This will be a very sad chapter in American history when it gets written, mass shootings. And while I do applaud the Walmart CEO for taking this step, and I think it's a meaningful step that has to come from the marketplace, where is Congress? Where are our political leaders? Their inability to act on this for so long is a true blemish on the American political landscape. And until Congress acts, we're sort of left with these bits and pieces of action by marketplace, which I applaud. But I mean, once upon a time, and it wasn't that long ago, in our lifetime, we had an assault weapons ban for 10 years from 1994 to 2004. What's it going to take to at least do that again at the congressional level? That is an obvious thing.
But here's my question. I'll ask it to Jeff as well. In terms of how this debate plays itself out, these companies are making business decisions, and often cases making business decisions ahead of what the law may ultimately be. The question is whether they either should or can advocate for these positions in Washington. They've advocated for positions around immigration before. They've advocated on lots of other issues. Is this still a third rail?
No, this is definitely something where business, looking at 2 weeks ago, the Business Roundtable statement, many of us were wondering and hoping that it was not going to be empty rhetoric. I think that was the steaming hot bowl of oatmeal that Sam Zell was referring to generally when we had another speaker on earlier that had once talked about a lot of these cliches. Is here they're putting it into action. It's not just empty words. Walmart is 10%. It's 1.6 million employees. That's about 10% of the working population of the country. This is a very big statement, but he's gone further, as Doug McMillon has called on Congress to act at the federal and state level, just as he did on an earlier issue having to do with the euphemistically called Religious Freedom Acts, the bathroom bills. He and Randall Stevenson of AT&T and David Abney of UPS, it was Bedrock America who said, we don't want this kind of divisiveness. We've seen people call for action from Congress before. In this generation, we have these Gen Xers now in control of major corporations. It seems to be making a difference.
Sam Zell,
by the way, the NRA was in favor, Bill, of what you were referring to, the 1994 Crime Act and the 1934 National Firearms Act. The NRA and the U.S. business community was in favor of those very effective regulations that sadly subsided.
Hey, Sam Zell, you're square in the middle of the business community. Is this the right decision? What you see Walmart doing? Do you want that? Do you want people entering this debate and dialogue?
Well, I think what Walmart has done is very commendable. I think that the most important issue in this whole arena is to separate guns from guns. What do you mean, guns from guns? Well, I cannot understand why anybody needs to have an automatic weapon, period. There's just no... you want to shoot deer, that's fine. You want to hunt, that's fine. But automatic weapons?
These are semi-automatics.
Yeah, I mean, they just don't make any sense.
Semi-automatics they're different.
And
automatic guns are...
If you need new legislation, the legislation ought to say, fine. If you want to shoot an automatic weapon or a semi-automatic weapon, you can only do that in a range, period. It never can leave a range.
Consistent with Sam's point. Sam's own Senator, Dick Durbin, has said if you need